Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update. It is the week of Thanksgiving. It's the week of November 27th, and Sharon and I would love to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. What we tend to do with our updates is kind of begin with a couple snippets. We call it news bites. Just a reminder, make sure you grab the PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this YouTube. You just have to click the link. It's right there on the YouTube page. So, news bites. Netanyahu, at a state memorial ceremony honoring David Ben-Gurion, he issues a stern warning to the Biden administration, basically saying, do not return to the previous nuclear agreement with Iran. He makes that statement, and then the supreme leader of Iran, Khamenei, comes out and says Iran has no interest in returning to negotiations with any of the Western nations over its nuclear program. We'll have to wait and see, but we've got a lot more coming concerning Iran, Israel, the US, Trump, nuclear agreements, Hezbollah. Stay tuned. Iran's been hit. A lot of their military that's made their way into Syria. There's been some Israeli strikes. Iran is facing losses, and they're vowing to defeat any Israeli attempt to harm their role in Syria. And then finally in our news bites, some good news. The number of confirmed new cases of Corona-19 in Israel continues to decrease, and Israel is beginning to reopen. We are told here at Holy Ground that the first opportunity for tours to resume in Israel will be sometime in mid-December. There are a lot of caveats, green nations only, and I'm sure right now America's not on the green list, but this is positive movement that's taking place. Now, as I mentioned, what is Bibi doing? We have reports from the Jerusalem Post that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Mike Pompeo, the US Secretary of State, the head of Mossad, that literally, it's hard to picture this, but Bibi, along with the head of Mossad, flew from Israel into Saudi Arabia on Sunday night. The plane left Israel at about 5, and it returned after midnight. Cloak and dagger, there's no doubt about it. You know, the Saudis are denying, but winking an eye at all of this, but no doubt the topic on the table is what is going to transpire before Biden, if he does take office in the last days of Trump's presidency. What will the U.S. allow or do in itself in regards to the Iranian nuclear program? We will literally wait to see about that. We do know this. We do know that from the past 4 years of Trump's leadership of the U.S. policy towards Iran, that although he's probably not eager to fight Iran directly, Trump will not stop U.S. allies from fighting Iran directly. And so now we see this Bibi flying to Saudi Arabia. We see the Israelis and Saudis. Something's up. Something is up. And as Netanyahu and his advisors prepare for a Biden administration, pundits in Israel say it behooves them to take advantage of this current diplomatic and strategic state right now to minimize Iran's ability to develop a nuclear arsenal. We've talked in the past few weeks that when Israel sets red lines, they don't erase them. And Israel has made it clear, crystal clear, they will not allow Iran to possess a nuclear weapon. Well, with all that's going on, as I mentioned earlier in the News Bite section, Israel strikes inside of Syria once again. Syria blames Israel for a series of airstrikes. By my count, this is the third time since Sunday. And on late Tuesday night, the Israelis targeted facilities south of the capital of Damascus, close to the shared Golan Heights border. And again, I think it's the third alleged Israeli attack in the past week. And it's all centering around the IDF's discovery of bombs that are planted along the frontier, reportedly at the behest of the Iranian army's Quds force. And there's no way in the world that Israel's going to allow this to transpire. This hits close to home because we have some dear friends that are in a kibbutz right on the Syrian border. And I think this is literally right in their backyards. Now, also in Israel, timing, as you know, is everything. The right parties, Likud and Yamnia, they really are controlling the Israeli government right now. It's not so much far right, but it's a solid, the government is solid right. And the Yamnia party Knesset member Bezalel Smotrich is calling on Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, to apply sovereignty to Judea and Samaria before the next U.S. president is sworn in. He goes on by saying that there could be disagreements with a Biden administration, but that can be managed. Now, keep in mind, Biden's vice presidential running mate, Kamala Harris, has said that they will oppose any annexation or settlement expansion. And so we're seeing these two parties starting to clash even as we speak today. What will transpire? And the concept, by the way, of Israeli sovereignty is, of course, the biblical homeland of the Jews, of Samaria and Judea. You know, towns like Hebron, Bethel, Shechem. You know, this is the heartland, the biblical heartland of biblical Israel. And so if you remember under Obama's swan song, as he was leaving office, we had the first time that the U.S. Security Council didn't veto a UN resolution condemning Israel. And so there are those that are saying a good target date for such a move for Israel to claim sovereignty over Samaria and Judea would be on December 23rd, because that would be the 4th anniversary of the Obama's administration to kind of blackball Israel. First time, whatever. And need I say, and let me just remind you that Genesis 12 is still in play these days. I will bless those that bless thee, and I will curse those that curse thee. So we'll see what transpires there. Iran's missiles. Interesting, a report just came out this week with everything that's brewing and going on in Iran, talking about their missile capabilities. The spokesperson elaborates that Hezbollah, the terrorist group, they hold a large supply of Fateh-class missiles, which he claimed are the most accurate Iranian missiles, adding that they can be used to target Israeli naval vessels and every major city in Israel. He also goes on to talk about some of the long-range missiles, the Fahar 3 and the Fahar 5, not only to target Israeli cities, but that these missiles will also have the ability to strike the U.S. Probably not great timing to bring all this up with everything that's going on, but nonetheless, the sabers are rattling. And then this last week, Israel discovered a terror tunnel in Gaza. And I think you have to understand the purpose. And by the way, in the slide, this terror tunnel that was discovered last month in Gaza was 22 stories underground. And so I had to get a 22-story building to give you perspective of how deep this tunnel was. It was over 1.2 miles long. It starts in the Gaza neighborhood, and this one extended across the Israeli-Gaza border. Keep in mind, these tunnels have one purpose and one purpose only. They're designed to get heavily armed Hamas terrorists into Israel, where their stated goal is to surprise IDF soldiers, to kidnap them, or to kill them, to kill, in fact, as many people as possible, and kidnap victims that would be dragged back through the tunnels. That's the stated purpose. 22 stories underground, 1.2 miles long. There's a peace partner for you, right? And then last up, President-elect, I guess we can call him that at this point in time, I'm not sure. President-elect Joe Biden announced this week the first ever appointment of a White House staffer of Palestinian origin. Rima Dodine, 33. She will be Deputy Director of the White House Office of Legislative Affairs, the department responsible for advancing the president's legislative agenda on Capitol Hill. Something about her you should know. As a college student in 2002, Rima Dodine justifies suicide bombings by the Palestinians. This does not warm my heart. I don't know about you. But I do think we're in for turbulent times. I think there's troubled waters ahead. Here's the good news. God's in control. This is not catching him off guard. But as a reminder to us all, let's pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray that Israelis' eyes would be open to receive Yeshua as their Mashiach. And again, we would ask at this point in the year as well to remember our ministry as well in your prayers. Remember Holy Ground Explorations, KFIR. Pray that the skies of Israel opens and we're able to return to the land that we call home. So God bless you and shalom.